What happens when one of the most talked about women in the world walks onto a daytime talk show stage and turns a simple interview into an absolute disaster? In just 38 seconds of one single comment, everything falls apart. The cameras are rolling, the audience is watching, and nobody could have predicted what was about to unfold on Tamron Hall's show that day. Tamron Hall has built her career on asking the tough questions while treating every single guest with respect and dignity. She's interviewed presidents, activists, celebrities, and everyday heroes. Her show is a place where people come to share their truth, to be heard, and to connect with an audience that genuinely cares. Tamron doesn't do gotcha journalism. She doesn't ambush her guests. She creates a space for real conversation. That's what makes her so beloved by viewers across the country. So when Meghan Markle was scheduled to appear on the show, everyone expected a thoughtful conversation. Maybe some discussion about her life, her experiences, her perspective on current events. The booking had been in the works for weeks. The producers had prepared questions. The audience had been briefed. Everything was set for what should have been a meaningful hour of television. Tamron welcomed Meghan onto the stage with genuine warmth. The audience applauded as Meghan walked out, smiling and waving. She sat down in the guest chair, adjusted her microphone, and settled in. Tamron began with what seemed like a perfectly reasonable opening question. "Thank you so much for being here today," Tamron said with her signature smile. "I want to start by asking about your recent public statements regarding your experiences. Can you walk us through what you were hoping to accomplish by sharing your story so openly?" It was a softball question, an invitation to share, an opportunity to connect with the audience. But Meghan's response was not what anyone expected. "Well, Tamron, I think the real question is why it's taken this long for someone like you to have a platform like this," Meghan said, her tone sharp and pointed. The audience went quiet. Tamron's smile flickered for just a moment, but she maintained her composure, professional as always. "I appreciate that," Tamron replied carefully, "but I'd love to hear more about your own journey and what you want people to understand." Meghan leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You know what I want people to understand, that I've been through more in the last few years than most people experience in a lifetime. And frankly, I'm not sure this format really allows for the depth of conversation that my story deserves." The tension in the studio was immediate. You could feel it rippling through the audience. Tamron had interviewed thousands of people. She knew how to handle difficult guests. She knew how to redirect a conversation that was going off the rails. But this was different. This wasn't nervousness or discomfort. This was dismissiveness. This was contempt. "Well, we have a full hour," Tamron said, keeping her voice steady and kind. "And I'm here to listen to whatever you'd like to share." That's what this show is about. Giving people the time and space to really tell their story. Meghan waved her hand dismissively. "An hour on daytime television. Right. Because that's really going to capture the complexity of what I've been through." Tamron took a breath. The camera operators glanced at each other. The producers in the control room were already on high alert. This was not going according to plan. "Meghan, I understand that your experiences have been incredibly challenging," Tamron said, her voice still warm but firm. "And I want to make sure we do them justice. So, why don't we start with something specific? Something you think is important for people to hear." "What's important for people to hear," Meghan said, leaning forward now, "is that not everyone gets to sit in that chair and ask questions. Some of us have had to fight for every single opportunity. Some of us have had doors slammed in our faces over and over again." Tamron nodded slowly. "You're absolutely right. And I've been one of those people. I've had plenty of doors slammed in my face too. That's part of why I do what I do, to open doors for others." "Oh, please," Meghan said, and the audience gasped audibly. "Don't compare your experience to mine. You have no idea what I've dealt with." The studio fell completely silent. Tamron's expression shifted. Not to anger, but to something deeper. Disappointment, maybe. Or sadness that this conversation had turned so ugly so quickly. "I'm not comparing our experiences," Tamron said quietly. "Every person's journey is their own. I'm simply trying to create a space where you can share yours. But I need you to understand that disrespecting me, disrespecting this show, disrespecting the audience, that's not okay." Meghan laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that echoed through the studio. "Disrespecting you? Are you serious right now? You invite me on your show. You ask me these basic, surface-level questions, and then you have the nerve to lecture me about respect?" The audience members were shifting in their seats now, uncomfortable, some of them looking at each other with wide eyes. This was supposed to be an inspiring conversation. This was supposed to be uplifting. Instead, it was turning into a confrontation. Tamron remained calm. Remarkably, impossibly calm. "Meghan, I invited you here because I thought you had something meaningful to share with our audience. I prepared thoughtful questions. I cleared an entire hour for this conversation. But if you're not interested in having a respectful dialogue, then maybe we need to rethink this." "Rethink this?" Meghan's voice rose. "You mean you're threatening to end the interview because I'm not playing along with your little daytime TV show script?" "I'm not threatening anything," Tamron said, her voice still even. "I'm simply stating a fact. This show is built on mutual respect, between me and my guests, between all of us and the audience. And right now, that respect is not present." Meghan stood up abruptly. Her microphone squealed with feedback. The audience jumped. "You know what? I don't need this. I don't need to sit here and be talked down to by someone who clearly doesn't understand the magnitude of what I've been through." Tamron stood up as well, facing Meghan directly. "I have never talked down to you. Not once. I have asked you respectful questions and tried to give you a platform to share your truth. You're the one who came onto this stage with an attitude, who dismissed this show, who insulted me and this audience." "Oh, here we go," Meghan said, throwing her hands up. "Now I'm the bad guy, because I dared to push back a little bit. Because I didn't just sit here and smile and nod and play the perfect little guest." "Pushing back is fine," Tamron said, her voice growing stronger now. "Disagreement is fine. Challenging questions are fine. What's not fine is coming onto someone's show and treating them like they're beneath you. What's not fine is dismissing the hard work and preparation that went into creating this opportunity. What's not fine is acting like you're the only person who has ever faced adversity." The audience began to applaud. Slowly at first, then building. They were applauding Tamron, supporting her, recognizing that she was standing up for herself with grace and dignity. Meghan looked out at the audience, her face flushing red. Unbelievable. You're all just going to take her side without even hearing my full story? "We were trying to hear your story," someone from the audience called out. "You're the one who wouldn't answer the questions." Meghan whipped around to see who had spoken. "Excuse me? I don't remember asking for audience participation." Tamron stepped forward, slightly. "Actually, this is a talk show. The audience is part of this. They're here to listen, to learn, to engage. And right now, they're seeing exactly what I'm seeing. Someone who claims to want to tell their story, but is more interested in attacking the person trying to help them do that." "Help me?" Meghan's voice was incredulous. "You think this is helping me? Bringing me on your show with your prepared questions and your sympathetic head tilts and your audience full of people who were always going to side with you anyway?" "I don't think the audience was always going to side with me," Tamron said. "I think they came in here ready to listen to you with open hearts. I know I did. But you've spent the last 10 minutes insulting everyone in this room. So, yes, they're siding with me now. Because I've treated you with nothing but respect, and you've given me nothing but contempt in return." Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. "I'm done here. This is exactly the kind of treatment I was talking about. The kind of environment where you can't speak your truth without being attacked. Nobody attacked you, Tamron said, her voice rising now, emotion finally breaking through. I asked you questions. I invited you to share. You're the one who came in swinging. You're the one who decided to turn this into a fight. Because I'm tired, Meghan shouted. The word echoed through the studio. I'm tired of people like you pretending to care when really you just want the ratings boost from having me on your show. I'm tired of being used. Tamron's face hardened. I have never used anyone for ratings. Every single guest who sits in that chair is treated with the same respect and care. I don't do ambush interviews. I don't do gotcha moments. I create conversations. Real, meaningful conversations. But that requires both people to show up ready to engage honestly. You didn't show up for that. You showed up looking for a fight. Maybe I showed up expecting more. Then this mediocre daytime talk show garbage, Meghan shot back. The audience gasped again. Some people actually booed. Tamron held up her hand, quieting them. If you feel that way about this show, then you never should have accepted the invitation, Tamron said. And honestly, at this point, I think it's best if you leave. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Final. Meghan stared at Tamron. Are you kicking me off your show? I'm ending an interview that was never going to be productive, Tamron said. You've made it very clear that you don't want to be here. You've insulted me. You've insulted my team. You've insulted this audience. And you've insulted the show itself. So yes, I think it's time for you to go. You can't do that, Meghan said, but her voice wavered slightly. This is my show, Tamron said, and I absolutely can. I will not stand here and let you disrespect everything we've built. I will not let you treat people this way. Meghan looked around the studio. Chad. The camera's still rolling. At the audience members watching, with a mixture of shock and satisfaction. At the producers standing in the wings with their clipboards and headsets. At Tamron, standing tall and unwavering in the center of the stage. Fine, Meghan said finally. I'll go, but everyone is going to hear about this. Everyone is going to know how I was treated here today. I hope they do hear about it, Tamron said. I hope they hear about how you came onto this show with an agenda. How you refused to engage in good faith. How you attacked someone who was trying to give you a platform. Let them hear all of it. Meghan started walking toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly on the studio floor. But she turned back one more time. You're going to regret this, she said. Tamron shook her head. No, I won't. I don't regret standing up for myself and my team and my audience. I don't regret setting boundaries. And I don't regret refusing to be treated poorly in my own house. That's what this studio is. My house. And in my house, we treat each other with respect. Meghan opened her mouth to say something else. But Tamron cut her off. Goodbye, Meghan. The finality in Tamron's voice was unmistakable. Meghan turned and walked off the stage. The studio door closed behind her with a heavy thud. The audience sat in stunned silence for a moment, and then erupted into applause. Not polite applause, not scattered clapping, a standing ovation. People rising to their feet, cheering for Tamron, supporting her, celebrating her strength. Tamron stood there, breathing hard, her hand over her heart. She looked out at the audience, and her eyes filled with tears. Not tears of sadness. Tears of relief, maybe, or gratitude for the support. Thank you, she said softly into her microphone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing that. And thank you for understanding why I had to do it. The applause continued. Tamron wiped at her eyes, composing herself. You know, I've done this job for a long time, she said, her voice steadier now. And I've always believed that everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone deserves a chance to share their story. But that opportunity comes with a responsibility. A responsibility to engage, honestly. To treat people with basic human decency. And when someone can't do that, When someone comes into this space and brings negativity and disrespect, well, that's not okay. The audience nodded, murmuring agreement. I'm not perfect, Tamron continued. I make mistakes. I ask questions that don't land the way I hoped. I misread situations sometimes, but I always try to approach every conversation with an open heart and genuine curiosity. I try to see the humanity in every person who sits across from me. And today, I tried to do that. I really did. But I also have to protect this space. I have to protect all of you. And I have to protect myself. More applause. Someone in the audience shouted, "We love you, Tamron!" Tamron smiled. A real smile this time. I love you all too. And I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry that what should have been an interesting, enlightening conversation turned into something else entirely. But I'm not sorry for standing up for what's right. She took a deep breath, looking directly into the camera. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to reset. We're going to bring out someone who actually wants to be here and share something positive with all of you. Because that's what this show is about. Real stories, real people, real connection. Not drama for drama's sake. Not attacks and insults, but genuine human conversation. The director called for the commercial break. The cameras stopped rolling. The audience continued clapping as Tamron walked off stage. Backstage, her producers rushed over to her. "Are you okay?" one of them asked. Tamron nodded. "I'm okay. Is she gone?" "She left the building," another producer confirmed. Security walked her out. "Good," Tamron said. She looked at her team, these people she'd worked with for years, who'd helped her build this show into what it was. "I'm sorry you all had to deal with that." "Don't apologize," her executive producer said. "You handled that perfectly. You gave her every chance. You were patient and kind and professional. She's the one who crossed the line. Multiple lines, actually." Tamron sat down in her dressing room chair, suddenly exhausted. "I really thought we could have a good conversation. I prepared so much for this. I wanted to understand her perspective, to let her share her truth. I had no idea she was going to come in like that." "Nobody did," her producer said. "But you did the right thing. You protected the integrity of the show. You stood up for yourself. That matters." Back in the studio, the audience was buzzing with conversation. People turning to their neighbors, discussing what they'd just witnessed. Some were shocked. Some were angry on Tamron's behalf. But most were impressed. Impressed by Tamron's composure. Impressed by her strength. Impressed by her refusal to tolerate disrespect. When the break ended and the cameras came back on, Tamron walked back out to thunderous applause. She'd touched up her makeup. She'd taken a few deep breaths. She was ready to continue. Ready to prove that one difficult guest wouldn't derail everything she'd built. "Welcome back," she said to the camera, her voice strong and clear. "That was unexpected. But you know what? That's live television sometimes. That's real life sometimes. People don't always show up the way you hope they will. People don't always meet you where you are. And when that happens, you have to make a choice. You can let them walk all over you, or you can stand firm in your values. I chose to stand firm." The audience applauded again. "Now," Tamron continued, "I promised you a show full of inspiring stories and meaningful conversations. And that's exactly what you're going to get. Because one person's negativity doesn't get to override the purpose of this show. One person's inability to engage respectfully doesn't diminish the value of all the incredible guests who do show up ready to connect." She introduced the next guest, a teacher who'd started a program providing free meals to students in need. The conversation was warm, genuine, exactly what Tamron's show was known for. The teacher talked about her motivation, the challenges she'd faced, the lives she'd changed. Tamron asked thoughtful questions, listened intently, and created the kind of space where the teacher felt comfortable sharing both her triumphs and her struggles. This was what Tamron did best. This was why people loved her show. Not because of drama or conflict, but because of her ability to draw out the best in people, to highlight stories that mattered, to create connections between her guests and her audience. But even as the show continued smoothly, even as Tamron smiled and laughed and engaged with her remaining guests, everyone in that studio knew they'd witnessed something significant. They'd seen a moment where someone tried to hijack a platform for their own purposes, tried to turn a conversation into a confrontation, tried to diminish and disrespect a host who'd done nothing but extend an invitation and an opportunity. And they'd seen that host refuse to accept that treatment. They'd seen her stand tall. They'd seen her set boundaries. They'd seen her protect not just herself, but her team and her audience and the values her show represented. The cameras captured Tamron's strength. The audience witnessed her grace under pressure. And millions of viewers at home saw what it looks like when someone maintains their dignity in the face of disrespect. Because that's the thing about respect. It's not just about being polite or following social niceties. It's about recognizing the humanity in others. It's about showing up to conversations ready to engage, not to attack. It's about understanding that platforms are privileges, not rights. That when someone opens their door to you, their studio, their show, their space, you honor that invitation by bringing your best self. Meghan Markle didn't bring her best self that day. She brought entitlement. She brought condescension. She brought a chip on her shoulder and a determination to prove some point that nobody else in the room understood or cared about. And Tamron Hall, who'd built her career on creating safe spaces for difficult conversations, who'd interviewed everyone from celebrities to survivors of trauma, who'd always approached every guest with empathy and openness, made the decision that enough was enough. She didn't do it with anger. She didn't do it with vindictiveness. She did it with clarity, with firmness, with the understanding that sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is end a conversation that's gone too far off track. The show went on. The audience went home with a story to tell. The cameras stopped rolling eventually. But that moment, those 38 seconds when everything shifted, when a simple comment revealed an attitude that would unravel the entire interview, that moment became something bigger than just a difficult guest on a talk show. It became a reminder that respect is a two-way street, that platforms come with responsibilities, that patience has limits, and that standing up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means making a difficult decision in front of cameras and audiences, is sometimes the most important thing you can do. What made the situation even more striking was how completely avoidable it all was. Tamron had extended the invitation in good faith. Her team had worked with Meghan's team for weeks to coordinate schedules, discuss topics, ensure everything would run smoothly. They'd sent over suggested questions ahead of time. They'd been flexible about timing and format. They'd done everything possible to make Meghan feel comfortable and prepared. None of that mattered in the end, because Meghan walked onto that stage with something to prove, and it had nothing to do with sharing her story or connecting with the audience. She wanted to establish dominance. She wanted to control the narrative. She wanted everyone to know that she was above this, above daytime television, above answering questions from someone she clearly viewed as beneath her. The irony, of course, was that Tamron Hall had achieved success through hard work and talent, not through connections or privilege. She'd started as a local news reporter and worked her way up through sheer determination. She'd faced discrimination and obstacles throughout her career. She'd lost her sister to violence and turned that tragedy into advocacy work. She'd built her talk show from the ground up, creating a space that genuinely served her audience. Meghan knew all of this, or she should have. The information was readily available, but she either didn't care or chose to ignore it. She saw a daytime talk show host and made assumptions. She saw someone asking her questions and decided that was an insult to her intelligence and experience. What she failed to recognize was that Tamron's questions weren't simplistic. They were designed to open doors, to invite elaboration, to create opportunities for meaningful discussion. That's what good interviewers do. They don't show off their own knowledge or dominate the conversation. They create space for their guests to shine. But Meghan didn't want to shine through thoughtful conversation. She wanted to shine by putting someone else down, by making herself look superior in comparison, by using Tamron as a foil for her own grievances. And Tamron, to her credit, recognized this dynamic immediately. She didn't fall into the trap of defending herself endlessly or trying to prove her worth to someone who'd already decided not to see it. She simply stated the facts. She named the behavior. She set the boundary, and then she enforced it. That enforcement, that moment when she told Meghan to leave, was powerful precisely because it was so measured. Tamron wasn't screaming or throwing things or creating more drama. She was calm. She was clear. She was done. The audience understood. They'd watched the whole thing unfold. They'd seen Tamron try again and again to steer the conversation back to something productive. They'd seen her patience and professionalism in the face of escalating hostility. And when she finally said enough is enough, they supported her completely. Because sometimes the most important thing we can witness is someone setting a healthy boundary. Someone saying, "This behavior is not acceptable, and I will not tolerate it." Someone valuing themselves and their space enough to remove someone who's bringing toxicity and disrespect. Tamron taught everyone watching a valuable lesson that day, not through a planned segment or a scripted moment, but through her real, authentic response to a difficult situation. She taught them that you can be kind and strong at the same time, that you can give people chances while also knowing when those chances have run out, that you can maintain your composure while also standing firm in your values. The story of what happened in that studio spread quickly. People talked about it. They debated it. They analyzed every moment, every word, every expression. Some people tried to defend Meghan's behavior. They made excuses. They claimed she was justified in her anger, or that Tamron had somehow provoked her. But most people saw it for what it was. A guest who came onto a show unprepared to engage respectfully. A host who handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. And a moment that reminded everyone watching that respect matters, boundaries matter, and standing up for yourself matters, no matter who's watching or what the consequences might be.